You just press play on the Last Breath Huntcast, home of the Huntroversy. We're here to entertain, educate, and engage. And in case you didn't know, you only live once. But if you do it right, once is enough. Don't waste it. Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in to Last Breath Huntcast. This is episode 161. Before we get into our episode topic of today, we just want to remind you guys that this podcast is presented by Badlands Gear using the Last Breath code, which is LastBreath22BL30, all uppercase, no spaces. You can get yourself 30% off of anything site-wide on badlandsgear.com. As just a reminder, they are one of the only people in the hunting industry with an unconditional lifetime warranty on all of their products. So if you rip it, tear it, stain it, spill it, whatever happens to it, you can send it back. I myself have taken advantage of that warranty twice. So has Garrett and a couple other guys. So make sure you take them up on that. Again, that's Last Breath 22BL30.
Yeah.
All of the rest.
Get some Badlands gear because it's the best stuff out there. You're going to love it. I just want to share a little story. Pat, my father-in-law, and I went out to Colorado, and he got some pants, worked fantastically, comfortable, fit great. We had to push through some nasty-ass oak brush. He actually got a small snag. He took a picture, sent it in. He's like, hey, it's not torn, but it's snagged. You can see. What do you want to do with it? They told him, send him in. They'll get him a brand new pair. That easy, that fast. Mm-hmm. So they really do stand behind their stuff. The warranty process is seamless, and I'm pretty proud to wear it. Yeah, and getting into episode 161 all the way through 164, we are going to be bringing you episodes that are relevant given the time of the season. So this episode will be launching on September 26th. So for everyone in Illinois that's hunting with a stick and string this year, we are knocking on the door. We've got about 4 more days of waiting until our season opens up on October 1st. So today we're talking about stand and blind setup. In episode 162, we're going to talk about our complete scrape hunting system and our tactics as relating to that. On episode 163 on October 10th, we're going to talk about using a decoy to get in close with a whitetail and ideally bring them in for a shot with archery tackle. And then episode 164 is going to be mid-season tactics and what we're doing in that last couple week stretch of October to try to seal the deal. So today we're going in stand and blind setup. So my first question for us to talk about today is, what is the most deadly deer hunting stand set up? And I think that we're going to peel back a lot of stuff as we're just talking through this one. So let's talk height first. Right. I guess, hello everyone, my name's Garrett. And I know that we've covered Grant and Garrett here, Last Breath Huntcast. I know that we've covered these topics in the past, but we seem to always grab new listeners. We love new guys coming on, and we just want to revisit these topics, especially being season relevant. Hopefully, you can use this to your advantage this fall and kill a deer. And boy, thinking back, dude, we've been hunting for a long time. Our methods, the equipment we use with specifically deer hunting and stands and blinds has changed a lot. Mm-hmm. And similar to a Huntroversy, these podcasts aren't the only way to get it done. They're just methods. They're products that we have used in the past. All of these mentions and these products are unsolicited. We are not endorsed by them by any means. We just know that they work really well. So these are going to come across as wholehearted recommendations to help you kill deer this fall. The end. And I think getting back to the question that you asked me, Grant, is height. Mm-hmm. 15 years ago, we would have said nosebleeds, get up above the scent, get out above their eyesight. Yeah. And anymore, the height of our deer stand is dictated by the tree that we're going to be in. Mm-hmm. We don't try to max out the ladder. If we got a 20-foot section, we're not trying to hang it on the top rung. If we have a tree that's 60 feet tall, we're not trying to get up in its canopy necessarily. It's a matter of making a decision that's based on the tree and the terrain to hunt it properly. Sometimes that's 12 feet, sometimes that's 18, sometimes it's 24. It's very dependent on the situation.
So let's go in a situation in which the deer stand would be in the 10 to 14 foot mark.
We're talking bottom of platform.
Right. I think that when you get in those low-hang scenarios, it's usually because you've got really dense brush or dense cover, or your tree canopy in that area is just lower than normal. You know, in a nutshell, we try to hang our stands so that we are directly in the best cover that we can without sacrificing any shot opportunities. You know, those lower hung stands for us are possibly going to be in some of those less desirable trees, hedge trees, you know, mangled up maple trees, something where there's a lot of systemic cover from the tree itself due to the way that it's shaped. We don't need to push up really high. We're hunting a trail or a scrape or a pinch that's close by. And really, we're getting off the ground to give us that edge and to hopefully get away with a little bit of movement, a little bit of scent, and get it done. That's where I find us in those shorter sets.
In the taller tree setups, then, I feel like we're oftentimes in a hackberry tree or potentially a oak tree that's just not a monster oak. I feel like when we're hanging out in monster oaks, and by monster I mean something that's 5 feet in diameter or larger, that we can actually just kind of lean against, and it provides us back cover per the tree bark itself, just because the tree's so large. But we're hunting typically in a skinny hardwood tree. I feel like that's a scenario when we are hunting up higher. Oftentimes, I feel like when we pick those higher heights too, we're on the edge of a field where it starts to roll. Like, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Like, why are some of those stands so high that we hunt in? We hunt quite a few field edges, and typically where a farmer cannot pick and hunt or pick and plant is going to be when the field breaks into some kind of cover.
Depression, right.
Depression. So I feel like in those scenarios, when the field's rolling down and away, that we typically tend to try to hunt higher. Also, I feel like lots of the times when we're trying to push a marginal wind in October, November, specifically with our bow in hand, that we're picking a higher tree, because ideally, if we can get a deer to come really close to the tree, our scent will be blowing over top of them. And so I feel like we use that strategy as well quite a bit.
Yeah, you know, that being said, I do think it's important. We hunt the right winds 98% of the times that we hunt, unless we really are getting aggressive or there's some anomaly. But I think more than not is the reason why we hunt higher on those field edges is because you have all that scrub brush. You know,
yeah, you get up and over it.
Yeah, very rarely does it go from cornfield to hardwood stands. You've got that 6, 8, 10, 12 foot buffer of dogwoods and multiflora rose and you know. Yeah. Autumn olive.
It's rarely a very clean fence row.
So we got to push up to get above that so that we can shoot into the field, or we can shoot the field edge. And I think that's the big factor why, like you said, those hackberries, oaks, cherry trees that grow right along them, you know, they're mostly telephone pole trees because they're the first ones to sprout to fight for the sunlight. And you just got to get above that edge. So you're not hacking a huge hole saying, hey, here I am right on the field edge. Come pick me before I shoot you. I think, you know, height is a factor, but it's not a big one. I think more importantly is the way that we pick trees for cover, you know, because as we just said earlier, height is dictated by cover, but 15 years ago going back, we were gap hunters. And what do I mean by gap hunters? I'm talking very generous shooting gaps.
Bare naked on the tree.
And now we have found way more success and had a lot more opportunities by having shooting lanes, you know, windows and holes where you strategically pick to try to shoot your deer. And I'm not saying that we handicap ourselves to a 12 by 12 window where we're shooting under a limb and around a vine. No, I'm talking about we have ample cover both in front of us and behind us, but we have 3 or 4 shot opportunities at the trail or the field edge or the food plot that we're hunting. Because when you open that up to a gap, a huge window, you have to think how unnatural that looks to a deer as they're coming down the field edge or they're scanning that timber edge, and all of a sudden, boom, there's a huge hole. You know, and there you are sitting in a tree, you know, no matter how good a camo you have on, it just looks unnatural. So, I mean, what do you have to say about that? Shooting, like I said, in shooting lanes and not gaps?
I feel like oftentimes you'll get picked if you're hunting and shooting a big, large gap like that. And I feel like we were guilty of that a lot. And one or two of the stands that we hang and hunt are still more of like an observational type of stand. And those are on field edges where we just simply don't have another option. But I feel like we tend to be 3 to 10 yards back and into the cover and pick holes out that we can shoot. So I feel like that's the better way to go, just because your visibility is going to be much lower for the deer. And like you said a few moments ago, I think it's important to recognize you got to deal with the cards that you're dealt and hang in. If there's a location that you have to be in to kill a deer, then you got to try to make it work, whether or not you're a stick or two high, as some of the public land guys do, or maybe only 10 or 12 feet high. So I feel like the way that we've hung and hunted stands has changed, and we're no longer on a hard edge. We're kind of tucked back off of a hard edge, and I feel like the direction that you position the platform of your stand is also really important, depending on which hand you draw and shoot your bow out of. Typically, we don't face our stands perpendicular to the trail that we're looking over. We'll face them almost parallel or close to parallel, so that way we can see and shoot. And we don't have to stand up out of our stand and create like that ample movement. We can just simply grab it off the bow hanger, clip on, draw, and shoot, versus standing up to gather your feet, to pivot, to turn, to shoot. And I feel like all of those small things add up to be a big thing, and we just try to chop as many of those small little unwanted things out, which is, one reason why we face the platform down parallel to the trail that we're looking on. So
that's another big thing. Just like you said, a lot of people are conditioned to standing when they're shooting, and don't get me wrong, we practice most of the time standing, shooting at our targets in our yard, but it's a lot of movement that you can eliminate. And when you think about, okay, I'm going to hang my stand, and just as you said, we're going to hang it in a way that I can grab my bow, I can draw my bow, and I can shoot those lanes seated. Think of all that movement that you're eliminating. The fact that you have to stand up, maybe spin around a little bit or turn. I mean, does it happen every time there? No. There's been plenty of times where we've had to stand up and spin around and shoot out of one of those backdoor lanes or something.
Yep.
But when you can, it makes a big difference. I would say, thinking back, did you stand up when you shot? You didn't stand up when you shot Buster.
Nope.
Nope. The last several deer, I can't even remember.
I kind of pivoted on my seat, but yeah, I had it clipped in, and I just kind of did one of these.
Yeah, you just adjusted your waist a little bit. Crunch, no. K2 seated, Teeter seated, Lucky seated, shoot, EK10 seated. I'm trying to think of all of our archery kills. I can't remember when was one we would have had to stand up and shoot.
The brute buck was seated.
Yeah. Yep.
The pincushion buck was seated.
Yep. Oh gosh, can't even think of his name. Slick seated. Shoot. So like, you think back, almost all of our archery kill deer have been seated.
Yep.
And I do want to say that it's by design.
Yep.
But that being said, it's not like, oh man, I have to stand up to shoot this deer. It's not like we wouldn't stand up and rotate around. It just makes it a lot much easier, and you have those opportunities. I want to talk about what we use. This isn't a knock. I know there's a lot of guys that really like these types of stands, but as I have changed in the style of hunting that I use, gosh, I do not like ladder stands. We are in the camp where we put stands up and take them down every year. So as far as just feasibility of that, they're a lot harder to do. They take up so much more room when you're storing them. And again, they're quite a bit more cumbersome to take in and out, whether you have a truck or a side-by-side. And as we've kind of evolved in the way that we whitetail hunt, we have really come to like the separate sections of sticks, those smaller sections that allow you to kind of climb any tree, whether it's a summit stick or a hawk stick. We really like those hawk heliums, and they're a little more expensive. I understand this, but man, the ability just to ping pong or bounce or literally pick any tree, it's very nice having that forgivingness. There's a lot of sections of ladder that clip together, bolt together, pin together that are very nice as well, but you still need a solid, straight tree to be able to use them.
Yeah.
And as we've come to appreciate more of the lighter weight, nimble hang-on stands and a stick system like that, it's allowed us to really, like we just said, find a tree and hunt it.
Yep. And it's not that we don't use like your heavier, bulkier hang-on stands or anything like that, but we don't use ladder stands anymore. And we've really only got like 3 or 4 stands that kind of are hung up and stay there all year long.
Right.
The other ones are, we run them in tandem in a set. And in a set, there will be a ladder system and 2 stands with a bow hanger, a tow rope,
couple of
things like that. A couple accessory hooks for a backpack and camera bag and stuff like that. And I feel like we still use those kind of stands, but they're the ones that are set over like a rut pinch or something like that we know we're going to go
Gate
to
hole.
at some point in time.
Right.
Versus others where we want to take them down, put them back up within the day, within an hour or 2 to get the bead on a different buck that we're trying to hunt. And I wanted to bring this up, this is something that we do a ton. And I feel like it's one of those underrated things that we do, but it's really smart. We will always look at the forecast and identify days that we want to hunt. We will try to, by the weather pattern, hang the stand for the wind that we want to hunt in 3 to 7 days. So if we can see that on our 10-day forecast on WeatherBug or whatever you have, that we're going to have a cold front, I would assume that on the first day of that cold front, you may get a rare east wind or you may get a north wind. So we're hanging those stands preemptively all times of the year to try to kind of match what the weather is doing. And we're doing that, 3 days to 7 days before we're actually hunting them. It's not so much that we're going out and hanging and hunting. We're taking these, and sometimes we are, but about 80% of the times we're thinking about like, okay, what do we need given this time of year? How can we hang this stand to give us the best wind possible for the deer and for us? And I feel like we do that often, probably 15 to 30 times a year are we taking a set down and putting it up elsewhere.
Well, I think on that note too, we did not say this, but our we'll call them permanent stands. And again, to reiterate, almost every single stand that we hang, we take down every year. We found that it just increases the longevity of the stand.
Especially the seat.
The seat, the straps. We have found too that by taking it down and putting back up, even if it's in the same area, maybe you're 1 or 2 trees over, you really begin to figure out that spot. Every farm has those rut funnels, those traffic areas, those places that you're like, man, I need to be here. And you're going to have a stand in that tree or that spot every year. But I know that by forcing us to rehang them every year, to tweak our shooting lanes a little bit, to change the height or the position on the tree, it's given us just a little bit better opportunity year and year again. And when we hang those, like I said, we'll call them permanent stands, we always go in there hanging them with a specific wind to hunt.
Yep.
In the Midwest, in our region, the most prolific wind that we have from November to January is a north to northwest wind. If you look at the days, Grant did this several years ago, and you just crunch the data, you're going to have more times than not a north to northwest wind. So if you hang it
80% chance roughly.
80% chance. So if you have that in mind, that makes a big difference, being able to let maybe that doe walk by before the buck comes in, or specifically for late season, to let the parade walk by before the big guy comes in. To think about that before you hang more of those permanent stands. What wind am I hunting this on? What wind am I going to be able to kill on? And that way you can go in and that when you check the forecast, not on top of many other factors, the temperature and weather swings and whatnot, but the wind specifically, do I have the right wind to hunt this stand? And then, as you said, when we start to ping pong and bounce around, I think it's really funny that when we kill that deer, we pull the stand. Because we're done hunting in that area. And this is us, right? We are a little bit cuckoo magoo where we've got 3 to 5 deer that we want to hunt every year. And it's like once we've removed one of those guys, we're usually on to the next buck, which is, a different farm or darn sure a different area.
Yep.
And we pluck it, move it, and we're on to the next.
Mm-hmm.
So you can really cover a lot of ground. Some guys think, oh, I've got 150 acres, I need to have 15 stands. Yes, if you hang a stand in every spot that you're going to leave up there, but we've been able to cover a lot more ground with way fewer stands by adopting this method. You've got a couple of your tried and true stands like we talked about, your permanent ones, but then by ping-ponging around, spend a little more money for a stand that's easier to hang, that's lighter weight, comfortable, and easier to move. And man, you now don't have to worry about hanging 10 stands every summer. You hang your 1 or 2, and then you have that one that like, dude, when this scrape pops off, I'm
Here
jumping
we go,
in there
yeah.
and hunting it, right? Or when the seasons change and these deer are filtering into this winter rye field, boom, pull it, go hunt that place. It sounds crazy to spend a little more money on some of these nicer stands, and I'm not talking about the crazy $1,000 setups. Like our Hawk system probably costs $450 with the helium sticks and a nice combat stand. But when you invest in that, it allows you to hunt the entire farm by just being able to move it, hanging it, practicing with it. You'll get really good at putting it up and taking it down. And again, to reiterate what Grant said, we don't hang it and hunt it. I'm the type of guy I could sweat in a meat locker, man.
Yeah, I don't like doing that at all.
I would rather hang it in the middle of the day,
leave
run
it for a
cameras.
day or 2 or 3.
Yes, and then
go
go in there and get in there. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, transitioning kind of to blinds and the way we use them to hunt.
Way different.
I feel like one thing that we've done over the last decade and a half, this is crazy to say, but I'm going to I'll be 30 this year, so I guess this will be our 16th season of hunting together. That's pretty wild, but I think that one of my stances is greatly changed, and that's like a soft-sided pop-up blind. Not a big fan of those too much anymore unless you have ample time. I would much rather kill a deer with my bow out of a deer stand where I have the forgivingness of a lot of shooting windows and don't have to worry. And it doesn't really help that you and me are pretty tall and our cams can pretty easily get ticked and hit on the top of most pop-up lines unless they're gargantuan in size. So I'm not a big fan of using them just because I feel restricted, and I feel like if you use the pop-up blind in an improper way, like you're just pop up and hunt, like the equivalent of hang and hunt,
you're never going to get away with it.
I don't think you're going to get away with it. I think deer are much more observant than we give them credit for, and I feel like even a blind that's been there for, we've had a couple different blinds that have been there for years. And we typically try to hunt them with the best wind possible. And even still, deer will look right at it. And we did a good job of making sure we're concealed on the inside. Like we wear black. The background is painted black. Our windows are, sprayed with tint. But they still look at it up and down when they enter the field. And I feel like that's definitely a red flag if it's just a foreign object that's popped out there.
I agree. There's a time and a place for everything in the hunting world. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's some definite gimmicks out there. But I feel like the soft-sided blinds, here's my problem with it. If you are going to put out a soft-sided blind and you do your due diligence to brush it in and do your best to conceal it, it still is going to take some time for that blind to get naturalized. And let's say you say, hey, I'm going to take, I can't afford a hard-sided blind. They're very expensive. It's an investment. But you can buy the pop-up blind. And you say, I'm going to go put it out in the summer so the deer get used to it. Just the unfortunate truth is those blinds cannot withstand that type of duration out there, especially as the season progresses. It's too many times did we try this when we were younger where we could afford a $250 pop-up hub blind, but not the ability to build a blind or buy a nice hard-sided blind. And we would find that we'd get in there, we'd set it in July and let it soak all summer. And yes, maybe the deer did get conditioned to it. By the time we hunt it, though, it's full of wasps, or the coons got in there and messed up the chairs.
Sun faded
and the zippers are now shredded. Or you had a huge windstorm and something's tore it. Or looking down into later in the year, you have a big snowstorm and then the snow caved it in and you broke some of the rods. I feel like we just constantly had bad experience after bad experience. Whether we tried to put it out a week in advance, we would have every deer bust us. Or then if we tried to let it soak, and we would just have problems or issues where inevitably at the end of the season, we were throwing it away because it got beat up by Mother Nature. And so we love blind hunting in certain applications, but what we've come to find is that it's the buy once, cry once mentality. We've had a ton of success with the Hawk down and out blinds. It's a metal frame blind. With the Redneck soft-sided blinds, again, it's a metal framed blind. And we've just taken the leap, and we built ourselves very nice elevated enclosed blinds.
Yep.
And they're permanent. Like all of the blinds that we just listed out there are completely different than a hub style soft side blind. They're designed to be able to take the elements, to take the snow and the rain and the beating, and that you can leave them out to let your deer get conditioned to them to be able to hunt them properly.
Yeah, I feel like, too, there are small benefits in shooting out of a semi-permanent or a permanent blind location, meaning like when we set up deer hunting, anybody that's listening, I'm sure you've killed a buck or 2 or 10 that didn't do what you thought it was going to do, and you ended up having to shoot him out of the side of the blind that is the small window or the tiny window or the peak window, I call it. And if you have a hard-sided blind, your ability to pivot and make a decision on the fly is much better. Like, let's say you've got your gun in a bog death grip like we have, and you don't have time, and he is trotting or walking with a fast pace through a field, through a food plot, something like that. Well, you are going to have to react pretty quickly, and if you have a hub style blind, you may have to rely on like some shooting sticks or something like that, whereas you have a much more firm point of rest to get a much more accurate shot off when gun hunting, when hunting out of a permanent or semi-permanent blind that's made out of iron rods or tube framing or something like that, or even your own homemade one. So I feel like that is one small benefit that really, really pays off, and it's paid off for us before. I mean, how many bucks have we killed with a gun where our primary point of rest has been the edge of a permanent blindside window? Quite a bit. We've only killed like a buck or 2 that I can think of out of a hub style pop-up blind.
And those were our younger years where we were forced to. And like the other thing, just as you talked about, in the nature of blinds, you have to pivot to shoot out of those windows. Pop-up blinds that don't have a solid floor, you have a very high chance of rustling the brush, the leaves, the grass, and tipping that deer off. Where again, the blinds that we just listed, our elevated permanent blinds are like we just said, they're permanent blinds. They have a subfloor. And like our metal frame blinds, we built runners for them. You can find these on our YouTube page. It'll probably cost you $110 in material, in treated material from one of your lumber yards. And you now have a hard floor that is much quieter to be able to stand up, turn your chair, position your body for a shot out of one of those windows that are not, like you said, you got your 3 windows that you're like, I hope they come into here. But
everybody does.
Yeah. But then it's like you peek and you're like, oh shoot, there he is. I got to completely spin.
Yep. I got to spin 90 degrees. Yeah. So, and I feel like, most of those blinds are zipper made anyway. And I mean, shoot, when it's quiet as heck out there and you're trying to draw down 12 to 16 inches of zipper to get a window down, like, that's like dragging your balls across a field of glass, man.
And
that
again,
hurts.
The down and out blinds have really impressed me. Like I do like our Redneck blinds. They're nice sized. They're built well. Like when you assemble them, they're solid and rigid.
The one we have is called the Gilly, the Redneck Gilly. It's a soft-sided semi-permanent blind.
I'll be honest though, I would recommend to not get the Gilly canvas. It looks fantastic.
It does.
It does. But if you take that cover off, you're going to notice that it holds a lot of debris and moisture. It's a lot harder to air out for storage. And then also, like we've noticed that Gilly material get caught in the zipper. And, you got to think you're trying to be quiet as a...
So what we've done is cut the 2 inches of zipper on every single window.
Cut
the Gilly materials around the perimeter of the zipper on every window. So at least we can try to get over that. But it's still inevitable that every once in a while we catch a little string in there and it jams our zipper, and
then you're cussing it and trying to do the little zipper shake up and down, up and down, up and down. You make way more noise. But the down and out hawk blinds, one of the most impressive features about that to me are the windows. Yeah. It's the one-way see-through material. Just, Primos came out with it several years ago and started this wave in the industry where it's a one-way see-through material, but the windows don't have any zippers. They actually, well, I shouldn't say that. They do have zippers for when you want to permanently seal them up, but all of these windows have a magnetic strip of rubberized magnets that will put this over the windows. So, it is 100% quiet. You don't have to worry about freezing rain, snow, anything. Like, for you to be able to take that and just peel it open, it's awesome. It's very quiet. I would love to see other companies adopt that type of window covering, because it allows you to still stay concealed and never have to fight with, I got to open the zipper and that deer is 30 yards away. Yep. I really like that on that down and out blind.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of the locations in which we put most of our blinds, I feel like with our gun systems that we have, if we're in a 5-acre field or less, if we intelligently place our blind, we should be able to shoot darn near the whole field and kill the whole 5-acre food plot or 5-acre field.
Yep.
That we have. So I do think that the juries adopted this phrase a while ago on one of their Whitetail Madness DVDs in the collection that you have, and they call it planting to your position. So if you're a person that's going to plant a food plot, I feel like what we've started to do is identify areas for our permanent blinds to go and set us up so that way we are hunting it with an 80% chance of getting that northwest wind, which we're probably going to have later in the year anyway with good access. So we're trying to manipulate the habitat around these and position them so we can have a manageable shot with a firearm.
Correct.
So I feel like if you're getting a new property, if you're buying property, whatever, make sure you're cognizant about where you're putting your blind so that way you can ensure that your shot is doable with the gun that you have, but also you're not going to be putting your hunt in risk of jeopardy. Because more than likely, if you're a guy that bought 100 acres and you're a middle class dude and you saved up for years and years and years to buy this property, more than likely that's probably your spot to hunt that you own. It's your only spot to manipulate. So you want to get the most bang for your buck. You don't want to be clearing fields every night when you're getting out of your blind. So I would highly recommend think about where your food's going to be in coordination with your blind position and try to get the food somewhere to the north of it. And maybe if you can be off to a corner, then you can hunt it, on a variety of different crosswinds that you get during the year. So That's one recommendation I would have. If you're actually going to put a permanent blind out, which I would rather hunt out of one during late season anyway, because in Illinois where we're at, which is Western Illinois, it's, it could get to -10, -20 out there and you want to be warm.
Correct. So you just want to be able to hunt. Warm is a luxury, but if it gets that cold and you're waiting on Mr. Big to step out 20 minutes before last light, you're gonna have to endure that for 3 hours. So having those blinds, and even those uninsulated, hard-sided, soft-side blinds like those hybrid blinds, it's amazing how much heat they'll trap. Funny story. You remember when we were hunting for Megatron last year? We were in a redneck blind as a ghillie blind, and you don't think, you're like, how much heat can this retain? It's just a covering. It was cold that day. And we had heated that blind up so much that our condensation built in it, and then it froze, and we physically could not open the zippers.
Yep, we had to climb out the front window.
We literally had to shoot out the front window because our body heat had created condensation in the blind, and then that obviously the blind was touching the cold, and it froze. And we tried. Yeah, we could not open the zipper. We're like, we have one option. What's that? Bail out the front window. What if that would have been elevated? I would have just had to take the knife and
yeah, literally. Cut a hole in it and bail out.
Well, it is what it is. But I think to go over from the top to the bottom here, our method with deer stands is we really prefer hang-ons. I think that the advantages of hang-ons gives you the ability to hang in more trees, to hang in different heights, and the ability to move them a lot easier. Again, ladder stands are good options for a lot of hunters, but you are stuck to a height. You are limited to the trees that you can be in, and you're really, it's ladder stands are more of those, put it up once, leave it there, right? Check the straps every years. Yep. And they're good, but for hang-on stands, they just check the boxes that we like to do as hunters.
Yep.
We prefer those stick sections rather than a full assembled stick. Again, just gives us the ease of pulling them and putting them up, and then it really opens up the trees that we can hang in. Looking at blinds, we have shied away heavily from the pop-up hub styles and really appreciate the permanency, the security, the luxuries of a more permanent or a hybrid style blind.
Yep.
And going on into that, if you guys have already probably hung your stands, now's a great time to make sure that the last thing that we didn't talk about is, and you touched on a little bit, is the small amenities. I can't tell you how many guys that we've helped hang stands with that don't ever use tow ropes or don't have like a gear hook. And we're talking about $15 worth of stuff at the sporting goods store. Those little accessory hooks are $2 a piece. A bow hanger's usually $5 to $8 a piece, and you can make a tow rope out of 550 paracord, and you can get 500 feet of that for about $6. So I think those are little things that we have always done that makes it a lot easier to get in and out of the stands. It makes them a lot more enjoyable. A bow hanger or a firearm hanger is number one. Actually, you know what? Would you rather have a firearm hanger or a tow rope? A bow hanger or a tow rope?
Oh man, I think I would rather have a bow hanger.
Really?
Yeah, I would rather lash it to my backpack just because there are clips on the back for that, and whereas I would rather tow it up than that. I don't really like lashing my bow to my pack, but I would rather have that because the way I feel is your percentage of hunt breakdown, I bet like 2% time-wise is actually bowing in hand, and I don't want to hold my bow or keep it across my lap like the whole time because I like to every once in a while like stand up and stretch or stand up and look, or like when we rattle, we typically tend to stand up and you're hands free to do it. So I would rather have the bow hanger, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how nice those little things are. And like we said, having just a hook for your backpack or maybe like us, we probably use 3 or 4 hooks in a stand. We'll have one for the backpack and we'll put maybe our rattling antlers on one that's accessible, and then have a third one for, anything. Maybe you want to hang your quiver on it, or maybe you want to put your binos on it, or maybe you want to put, your grunt tube on it, something that you just don't want to keep on your person. And again, we're talking $15 to $20 worth of, or quite a bit less sometimes, depending on when you buy them, for just some simple amenities that really can change the convenient factor and the usable factor of your gear in the stand.
Yeah. Getting into a would you rather have 5 stands or 2 blinds this year? Let's say you're hunting one property.
5 stands.
Yeah.
100% 5 stands.
So even during gun season, you would rather have the 5 stands and just, shoulder it, make your most accurate shot, maybe with like a oversized platform and a shooting stick or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe one of those 4th arrow gun arms. I can't remember.
Rest.
Final rest is what they're called.
Yes. Just thinking of the percentage.
For bow hunting, I would obviously rather have stands 100%.
And I know this is one or the other for all season. I really enjoy hunting at a deer stand. Don't get me wrong. If this was for gun hunting only, it'd be a blind. But for all season, I'm taking the deer stands.
Okay. Anything to share here before we hop off?
No, just that season's kicking off. The Last Breath Inner Circle is starting to pop off. Guys are sharing trail camera pictures. People are killing deer. Wayne took a youth out and got it done early season. He was able to get it, a kid his first button buck. And we love seeing stuff like that. So if you guys are having success or you want to just bounce around ideas, throw it up in the Inner Circle. We're happy to communicate with you. And I'm excited for this series. This is the first one. Like I said, sometimes these things maybe seem redundant to some more experienced hunters, but sometimes it also will just jog your memory, like, man, I didn't think of a little trick like that. So this next little series is just all going to be about whitetail hunting. Hopefully these little shorter version podcasts, you guys can take away a tidbit of information and apply it in the field. So we'll see you on the next one. Don't waste it.